Hello, and welcome to Totally Schway, a podcast about the DCAU and whatever the hell else I want to talk about. My name's Mary.
And my name is Luke.
How are you guys doing today?
We'll wait for the answer.
Yeah.
No, we won't.
That was a terrible joke. But I love doing it's like a dad joke, isn't it?
I suppose so, yes.
Yeah. So, let's just get straight into it. Do you have any news today?
Little tiny bit of news coming out of WonderCon? WonderCon.
WonderCon. What a wonderful name for a convention.
Yes, so good I couldn't even say it properly.
It's one of my favorite words, wonder.
Mm-hmm. Glad to hear it.
Good.
Well, what was I talking about? News from WonderCon. Yes, yeah, okay. So Todd McFarlane had his usual toy panel where he announced a whole bunch of stuff before his DC license runs out next year. But among the treasures announced was the next wave of Batman the Animated Series figures.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another Build-A-Figure line. And it includes the Grey Ghost, Ra's al Ghul, Killer Croc, a version of Batman that they're calling Classic Batman, but it's basically the Batman character model with the same paint job as the old Kenner Combat Belt Batman. And if you buy all four of them, you get pieces of a fifth figure that you can assemble. And that fifth figure is Jonah Hex, as he appeared in Showdown. So it's like old man Jonah Hex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
They also recently reconfirmed that the wave that it's got Phantasm, Bane, and two other figures I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're another Build-A-Figure wave that builds Bruce Wayne. They also confirmed that one is coming now. And the Bruce Wayne comes with an accessory, which is a briefcase with the Batman costume in it.
Have they announced the last thing that they're doing? Is that going to be at the end of 2026 or the beginning of 2026?
Apparently it's the middle of 2026.
Okay.
They've basically got just over a year to go.
Okay, so it's a financial year then, I'm assuming.
I would assume so,
yeah. Well, it's a shame that Todd can't really take anything from my video.
I mean, there's still time, but...
I think, though, Mattel, hello, my name's Mary Susan, and today I would like to introduce you to myself. Barbie lover, Barbie lover, Barbie lover. Let's talk. That's it. That's my interview.
Okay, good.
I have actually started using my middle name when I'm talking online. So, yes, you could don't call me Mary Sue. But unless you're Mattel, you guys and Warner Brothers can call me anything you want, except for Stalker. Let's get into today's episode. Was that all of the news you had?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I thought so. I always enjoy hearing about Todd's toys. Because it's just one of those things that it brings a little bit of joy. A lot of joy. Humongous amount of joy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So let's get on to today's topic.
Yeah, your favorite topic.
Orion.
Yeah.
I still can't do it.
You said it right, Orion.
No, I know I can say it. It's just like I can't see. He's going through his.
Yeah. So for anyone that's not following what Mary's saying, she finds his mode of transportation preposterous because it looks like a Zimmer frame or a walker.
Truth.
We watched the Justice League Unlimited episode Flash and Substance last night, which is another
Such an
Orion
episode.
But there is a moment where he is on his hover thing. I forget what it's actually called. Talking to Batman about the Flash being a fool. And Mary was just laughing the whole time, going, he looks ridiculous. He looks so silly. I'm like, shut up. Leave Orion alone.
He told me before the episode, he was like, I will have no, what did you say? I'll have no Orion slander or something like that. And then when I started to laugh, he was like, we talked about this. I was like, no, you talked about this.
Yeah.
I'm not slandering. I'm just saying it's kind of funny. It is getting less funny, but...
Well, it's because he's in the title sequence of almost every episode as well. Riding along in his little...
Yeah, you just
shooting, going pew pew pew.
You want it to sound, well, not everybody, but I always think of the sound of like a really bad weed whacker. You know that noise.
Yes.
He's just good.
It's silent. It is silent.
Yeah, well, that's some good technology.
Yeah.
So what's cool about us talking about Orion is Luke has recently um been purchasing some of the new gods, some of the older comics,
Yeah.
and it's been really cool to hear him talk about it. But I know Orion from the animated series.
Mhm.
I don't know him from the comics, so care
Yeah.
to care to share with the class?
So one of the things that I really liked about the DC animated universe is the way they adapted the characters. They weren't like slaves to the continuity or anything. They would just take what worked, dropped
Mm-hmm.
away all the stuff that didn't work.
Yeah.
There were very few creations where they just transported them wholesale without dropping anything, and most of them were Jack Kirby creations like Darkseid and Granny Goodness and so on. So that kind of indicates a level of reverence, I think, for his work. I saw a funny interview with Bruce Timm. It was actually a documentary about Jack Kirby I was watching, and Bruce Timm was interviewed for it, and he was like, "When I was a kid, I didn't like Jack Kirby at all. I was like, oh, this is too square." But obviously, Kirby has influenced his art quite a lot because, I mean, well, just look at it. They use similar compositions. They use quite a lot of squared characters, or at least Bruce Timm's masculine characters are very square or rectangular, I suppose you might say. And it's funny. I believe it was who was it that was also on the documentary? It said you had to be educated into liking Jack Kirby.
I don't think
I
that's
forget the.
true.
Well, it's something that you acquire over time because I felt similarly when I was a kid. I didn't really like Jack Kirby's artwork all that much. I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's very dynamic. I get it. But there are artists I prefer. But over time, I've grown to appreciate it more and more and more. And as Mary said, I think it was in January, I said, right, this year I'm going to collect Jack Kirby's DC works.
I think what you said to yourself was, I think I'm going to start collecting New Gods
I
things.
didn't say New Gods. I said Jack Kirby's DC
Oh yeah,
works.
because I remember you putting the stuff in think. You had that word somewhere in there.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to try and do it. And
Then Valentine's Day comes around.
it was before Valentine's Day, wasn't it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Timelines, they don't matter.
Yeah.
Time is a
I
construct.
only say Valentine's Day because that's around the time. We went further into London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the Notting Hill Comic Book Exchange, which is just like a little second-hand store.
If you get a chance to go to London, I definitely think that is worth checking out because the people are always very helpful, but also ask for stuff. Like, don't be afraid to ask them for things because they might not have everything put out because of how the shops in London are. You're never going to have enough shop floor space for everything.
Yeah.
I also like it because it's in Notting Hill and it was a different place for me to check out.
Yes, but we went in there and they had a little box up the front of the shop saying, they had Steve Ditko stuff. They also had Jack Kirby stuff.
Mm.
So I was just rifling through there, found a bunch of them. And I'm like, yeah, okay, good. I'll buy these. They're not that expensive. And then the guy was like, so you like Jack Kirby? I've got some more if you'd like to take a look.
I thought he was going to come out with like 2 or 3, like of the, I would say more of the pricier ones because sometimes they only have, I think it's like that with every comic shop internationally or whatever, where they just have that wall of like the precious comics.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to come out with 3 or 4. No.
Well, he did have a Mr. Miracle #1 on the wall, didn't he? But it had a watermark.
Or tea stain.
Yeah, it had a stain on it, and I was like, no, I don't want to get this one. But he brought out his other box of treasures, which was basically nearly all of New Gods and Forever People, a chunk of Mr. Miracle and the Demon. And I just said, to hell with it, I'll get them all.
Yeah, it's not something you do every day, though.
No.
Which is the way that Luke rewards himself is something that I'm trying to learn. Is in a way, I feel like he is going back to child Luke and making child Luke happy which I think all of us should do. And the Luke that we have now, I think child Luke would be really, like, would totally look up to him.
I am child Luke still. I'm the same in my head as I have been since I was about 10 years old.
I think we all think that.
Yeah, I talked with Kevin Altieri and he said, yeah, the same for him.
Yeah.
He said he's a 10-year-old in his mind.
Yeah, and you know what? Should never lose it.
Yeah, you shouldn't. But that was a massive tangent. But the thing I was saying is that they showed a lot of reverence for Jack Kirby because they didn't really change his creations very much. Now, Orion's an interesting character because he... All right, so his backstory is that he is the son of the new god Darkseid.
Mm-hmm.
And Darkseid rules Apocalypse. Apocalypse was at war with its opposite, New Genesis. So
Yeah.
Apocalypse is basically hell. New Genesis is basically heaven. But as part of a peace treaty, the leaders of each of these planets traded their sons to raise them separately. And, you know, if their son lives on that planet, they're not going to destroy it. Basically, that's the thought process.
Yeah.
So Highfather, the ruler of New Genesis, raised Orion. And Orion, obviously Darkseid's son, he is... How can I put it? He's rough around the edges. We'll put it that way. But he fights against his bestial nature. Darkseid, meanwhile, raised Highfather's son scot-free, Mr. Miracle. Well, I say he gave him to Granny Goodness, and Granny Goodness raised him in a torture pit. But anyway, now the thing with the DCAU version is they actually show that trade. That trade was never shown in the comic books, the Jack Kirby comic books anyway. We saw Darkseid speaking about it, and he had his son Orion taken away by some of his soldiers and just like pushed through a boom tube into New Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, Orion was, I think he would have been like 7 or 8, something like that. He was, he was able to speak at least. He was almost feral.
Different parenting there.
Yeah, and then Highfather just says, I can be your father. I am not your father, but I will raise you as my son, and I will teach you to be better, and leads him into the light.
Funny how both of them ended up not going the Apocalypse way.
Yes, that's right. Whereas Mr. Miracle was handed over as a baby, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So he had no recollection of New Genesis or anything like that, and he was just raised from birth in the pits, and he hated it. And spent his whole life trying to escape from it.
Mm-hmm.
But the DCAU version has them both be babies, both be traded, both have no knowledge of...
Makes more sense.
Yeah, they simplified it.
Yeah.
And the thing about Orion in the comics is that he actually looks like Darkseid. He's got like a monstrous face, but he uses the mother box to give him a more New Genesis pleasing style face. So that's kind of like the metaphor that he hides his bestial nature. But
we all.
Well, yeah, we do. I think we all do to a certain extent. But they cut that out in the DCAU stuff. They just simplified it to, he's Darkseid's son. He was raised by Darkseid's enemies. He fights for good. And he's in, I don't know, 5 episodes in total, I think.
But Orion?
Yeah, Orion. Across Superman the Animated Series, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited. Because he's
Excuse me, what was it? You mean hashtag JLAS?
Yes, hashtag JLAS.
And then hashtag JLU?
Jaloo.
We love it.
But again, their version of Orion, when he's introduced, I really liked this scene. So he comes through a boom tube. And he's looking for Superman. He goes up to Clark Kent and he goes, Superman! And you're supposed to think that, oh no, he's exposed Superman's identity to everyone. But he follows him and says, I must find Superman, and passes out. Because he's been fighting Darkseid's forces.
Mm-hmm.
And he's come to warn the people of Earth that Darkseid is coming to take over.
Yes.
But I think... We were just talking earlier, weren't we, about his appearance in Flash and Substance, where he is now a member of the Justice League in their massive expanded roster.
Yeah.
And the thing I liked about that episode is there's kind of 3 styles of hero in that episode, where there's the light an airy, light-hearted one like the Flash who knows everybody's name in Central City, who knows all of his villains and, what medicine they're supposed to be taking. There's Batman, who is stern and harsh. And then there is Orion, who is even more stern and even more violent. You get a really great demonstration of this where they go to the supervillain bar.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Yes, and they want to interrogate the trickster. Batman asks him to tell him where the rest of the Central City rogues are. Mm-hmm. He says he won't rat on him. Batman steps aside and says, Orion? Orion walks forward, grabs him by the throat, lifts him off the ground, and he says, talk while you still have a jaw. And then Flash intervenes and is like, no, put him down. He's sick, he needs help, we just need to talk to him. I thought that was a really nice kind of demonstration of the contrast between the three of them. Although I think that Orion was very pared back in that episode, because if you see other episodes, or even read the comics, he is very quick to anger. He is very violent.
This episode that we're talking about is one of the many reasons that I love the Flash. I know it's not a Flash episode, but
it is a Flash episode.
No, I'm talking about this podcast episode.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
But I just really loved how mature, calm, and rational that Flash was, even though he puts on this air of being a frat boy, essentially.
Yeah. Yes. As, what's it Orion says at the end of the episode? He goes, I understand you now, Flash. You play the fool to hide the warrior's pain.
Oh, yeah, that was beautiful.
Flash doesn't disagree with him.
Yeah. I like how Orion is written in terms of his dialogue.
It maintains, so was it the last episode? Or it might have been a Flipside episode, I forget. I referred to Jack Kirby's writing as being a little bit weird. Like, the dialogue sounds wrong, but it's a type of poetry.
Yeah.
So like
you're thinking Shakespeare.
It is a little Shakespearean. So like, for instance, the example I always bring up, and I love this so much, it makes me laugh. I don't know if it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So Darkseid has kidnapped some human beings, and he's trying to bore through their minds to find the solution to the anti-life equation, because apparently the solution to the anti-life equation lives within our minds.
Mm-hmm.
Orion rescues them, and he's trying to take them through this factory that they've been held in. And he opens the door to an office, and he goes, "Hold! Do not enter this room, for it is accursed." And it's just a regular office that Darkseid's sitting in a comfy chair. That's the thing. Darkseid loves a good comfy chair. There's I did a video about Big Barda, and sorry to go off on another tangent, but I made reference to a comic book storyline where a disgraced member of Darkseid's cabal had been sent to Earth. I think his name was Sleaze. Imagine how bad you have to be kicked out of Apocalypse by Darkseid. But he had hypnotized Big Barda and was kind of making her make nudie videos. And Mr. Miracle is informed of this by Darkseid, who is waiting for Mr. Miracle in his home, and he's just sat down in his armchair. Good. Like, Darkseid, what are you doing here? Darkseid enjoys a comfy chair.
Yeah, just sitting in his lazy boy.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was another massive tangent that I went on.
So, when you first heard of Orion, was it because of the animated series, or did you know him from the comics?
I knew him from the comics, because he joined the Justice League temporarily when Grant Morrison was writing Justice League, or JLA as it was called at the time. Orion and Big Barda were members until the conflict with Mageddon, which was like the big culmination of Morrison's arcs, took place. And then they were like, right, job's done, back to New Genesis. But I think that the DC animated version of Orion is a bit more pared back than the comic book one. I was going to say in Flash and Substance, Orion is usually very violent. I think he would have obliterated the Flash's rogues very quickly if it were a comic book story.
Just by looking at them.
Well, yes. But they had him get frozen. And they didn't really have him throw very many punches. I think it was, it's because these are very silly light-hearted supervillains.
And Batman probably had a word.
Well, yeah, I suppose in universe might be Batman.
Literal one word.
Yeah, hold.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one of the things that we talked about a few times, I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, I think we did, is during hashtag JLAS and hashtag JLU.
J-Lou.
Superman's response to the people of Apocalypse and New Genesis kind of brings out the worst in him. So he likes Orion, obviously.
Who doesn't?
You don't.
I never said that.
Um,
I just said his little whirly thing makes me laugh.
there was something that happened in Twilight, the JLAS episode Twilight, excuse me, where Orion comes aboard a Brainiac's space station to finally defeat Darkseid, and he loses. And Darkseid picks up Orion's mother box, and he's going to use it to escape.
Oh,
Superman
Lord.
destroys the mother box.
Yeah, nobody thinks of this, and I didn't really think of it until Luke mentioned it. Was it a few days ago when we were talking about it?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Mother boxes are sentient machines. They are alive. And Superman killed one.
He kills Dose.
He kills at least two of them.
Yeah.
He killed one of them in Twilight when he destroyed the one in Darkseid's hand and said, none of us are leaving.
Yeah.
And then also in the JLAS, no, it's JLU, excuse me.
Mhm.
I'm losing track of my hashtag.
Justice League.
Yeah, Justice League Unlimited episode. It's the... Oh, damn, which episode is it? I've forgotten the name of the episode, but it's the one where the question is taken by... Is it Question Authority? Possibly? Where the question is taken by Cadmus.
Mm.
Now, at the beginning of the episode, Superman and Captain Atom team up to fight Mantis, who is one of Darkseid's minions. And they get rid of him by opening a boom tube, punting him in there, and Superman crushes his mother box so that he can't come back. And I'm going, oh my god, Superman just killed another mother box! Someone's got to stop him!
He just doesn't care.
No, because they're not just machines. They are sentient. They have thoughts and they have feelings. They are connected to the source, which is like the DC universe's version of, well, I suppose, God in a way.
The Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I mean that's very much how it's presented, because the New Gods comics have quite appropriately given their name. They've got a lot of religious imagery in there, like Highfather carries a shepherd's crook, like is that Abraham? Was it Abraham? I think it was Abraham with the shepherd's crook.
I'm not sure.
Might have been Moses. I forget. It's been a long time since I've been involved with anything particularly religious. But they use that kind of judo Christianity imagery. I said judo as in like karate. Doesn't matter. You know what I meant. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. And I think the thing that I like about Orion is that he tries very hard to fight against his nature. He tries very hard to be, someone that Highfather could be proud of. But he almost invariably gives in to his rage. And he is very much Darkseid's son. And we had a very amusing exchange I wanted to share, didn't we, when we were talking about Calabac? Because they'd never explicitly said who the son of Highfather was in the show. And you're really only familiar with the show. So you assumed, because of how hostile Darkseid is towards him, you assumed that Calabac was Highfather's son, didn't you?
I did.
And I said, no, he's Darkseid's biological son. What was your reaction? You went, oh.
It was something like that, because I was just like, oh yeah, 20 years of me. Well, yeah, nearly 20 years, about 18 years of me thinking this, and it didn't make sense to me at the time, but now it makes sense that Orion and Mr. Miracle would go against Darkseid, because you can see how he treats people and treats people that admire him, like Calabac, like a son would a father, if you will. And Calabac cannot do anything right. Nobody can do anything right. And just imagine how that can make you feel. And also, both Orion and Mr. Miracle don't get the evil
Hmm.
They want to help other people, and it's something that they learned and that they also always had in them, but they learned how to embrace that rather than the evil.
Yeah.
And it's such a wonderful wonderful storyline, because that's kind of like a little bit of all of us, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it's a very, despite these being fantastical characters,
Yeah.
raised in paradise,
Mm-hmm.
they're very human.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to mention, one thing they didn't bring over from the from the comics, is Orion's civilian identity was a private investigator called Orion, as in like the Irish name Orion.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how they referred to him, like, oh, it's the investigator Orion. I just found that really funny. And I mentioned that he uses, in the comics, he uses the mother box to hide his bestial face, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they didn't bring over some of the stuff with Orion quite wisely, because it's I wouldn't go as far as saying it's silly, but it kind of reduces the impact of that human story that you were just talking about.
Okay.
I think it does anyway. It distracts. That's the word I would use.
Yeah. And I think it's funny that there are probably other people like myself that just didn't get that it was Mr. Miracle that was the son. And you kind of always want to think that it's Calabac, because Calabac wants to be evil so bad.
Yeah, Calabac is almost like the opposite of
Mhm.
Orion, isn't he? He desperately wants to please his father.
Yeah. And yeah, I just find it really, you know what, in a weird way, because we're talking about like apocalypse and stuff like that. It's a word that keeps coming to mind is heartwarming. It's heartwarming to see that human, although they're alien,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
humanizes them in a way.
Yeah, it does. I liked in Twilight, I believe it was, where Highfather knows that Orion is not ready to face Darkseid, and he tells him
Mm-hmm.
in no uncertain terms is he to go and help Superman fight Darkseid. He must stay put while he goes and communes with the Source to come up with a plan. And Orion's like, I could do that. Or I could just take my boom tube and go over there and get into a fight with Darkseid. And he does that, and he gets
With
beaten.
his little whirly thing.
With his little whirly thing, yes. But the thing is, Darkseid is actually very proud of Orion, even though they stand on opposite sides in the conflict. You know, as proud as Darkseid can be of someone, I'd say that the son of, maybe not his son. No, actually, I'd say the person that he admires the most is probably Orion, even though they're on opposite sides.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't take an awful lot of pleasure in stamping on Orion's head during that conflict in the Twilight episode. Mary was just looking up what the name of Orion's mode of transportation is, which I should have done beforehand, and it's called the Astro Harness.
It's got a little like.
I don't think this is funny.
I do. It's just, honestly, guys, look up what I'm talking about. Like, look up Orion's Astro Harness, and would you laugh if just randomly, literally randomly, you just saw somebody whizzing by? Would you not be like, that's quite hilarious?
I don't think
I would. I wouldn't even think that they were an alien. I'd be like, that's some guy in a shop, like in his own little like backyard shop or shed, excuse me, just making inventions. And you don't know if it's gonna work for another couple of minutes or not, or if you're just gonna see them break an ankle or something. So you're like, hey, that's my thoughts. That's literally what goes through my mind when I see it. Yeah, and that's my thoughts on the Astro Harness.
So there we go. We're talking about all of the significance of the the humanity of the story of Orion, and you've just spent the last minute or so just laughing at his mode of transportation.
That's what I
Unbelievable.
do. I laugh through the pain of life.
You act the fool to hide the warrior's pain.
You know what? Sure. Sure. And then I cry. And then I laugh, cry, and then I forget what I'm upset about. And then I watch Justice League and I start laughing again, and then I remember and I'm like, shoot! All right.
Orion.
Did I say it wrong?
No, I was saying Orion.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
All right, well, I feel like we've come to a nice, natural conclusion of the conversation there.
Oh, really?
Did you want to keep talking about Orion?
I mean, I don't really have a ton left to say because we don't see him that much. He does have a significant role in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Like, a huge role, although he's only in several episodes.
Yeah, he's not in the finale of Justice League when Darkseid invades Earth. I think it's because Darkseid has attacked New Genesis as well, if I remember rightly. It's been a while since I've watched that.
Darkseid is a loser.
Well, yeah, no, Darkseid, at that point, he has merged with Brainiac and has become like the ultimate, even more ultimate life form. So he is now able to fight his little war on two fronts.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to have seen Orion, but maybe that would have distracted from the confrontation between Darkseid / Brainiac and Superman.
Yeah, maybe. So, shall we get to some comments?
Yes, all right. So first comment from our last episode, which was about the DCAU Lex Luthor. Go listen to that if you haven't already. The first comment is from Scream Wiper, who says, Lex Luthor again? He is a good character, but this time it's specifically the DCAU version I see. Yeah, we said we were going to do that on Flipside when we talked about all Lex Luthors, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Scream Wiper also says, I paint my nails too, Mary. Listeners note that I am a man, also heterosexual and cisgender, but currently they're black and dark pink.
You know what? Yes, I love men that paint their nails. I love it. It because it shows that you are comfortable with your masculinity and you love. What was I going to say? I was going to say something like you love like having good taste in
expressing yourself. Perhaps.
Yes, expressing yourself, but also you have taste because nail polish is awesome.
Screen Wiper also says at 43 minutes and 33 seconds, anyone who thinks animation is for kids should watch Invincible. Actually, Luke and Mary, what's your opinion on that show? It's superheroes, so I'm sure you've seen it. I really like it. Best thing on Amazon Prime, except maybe The Boys, which is also superheroes, but live action instead. I've watched, was it the first 2 or the first 3 seasons? What was the latest season that came out? I haven't watched the latest season, let's put it that way. I enjoy it well enough, nicely made. I did read... I read a bunch of the Invincible comics back when they first came out. I think I might have read like the first 30 or 40 of them. Just kind of fell off. But it's a decent show. Yeah, you haven't watched it, have you, Mary?
No.
Maybe
I have heard a lot about it, which I will eventually watch it, but I can't remember what I'm currently watching now. Nothing, I think.
Well, we're watching Justice League, aren't we?
Yeah, but that's usually, we watch that right before bed. What am I watching in a moment? Oh, the things that I'm watching are like the Thursday night ABC lineup, which is 911, Grey's Anatomy, 911 and Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, but it's got a lot of people in it that you like. It's got J.K. Simmons, Walton Goggins. Oh my God, why can I not remember his name? Stephen Yun, that's his name, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I love him. Love him. He's wonderful.
Yeah, he's the main character in it.
Oh, really?
He is, yes. But anyway, moving on. So, Screen Wiper also posted later on a chicken update. So I'll read that now, seeing as I try to just get everyone's comments together in one place.
Chickens.
Literally one day after the last chicken news, Wilma had no trouble getting down the stairs today. Very agile, great to see.
Good.
Yesterday I gave Wilma and Betty bread laced with Calpol, a paracetamol-based medicine, so maybe that's what caused it. This comment shall be edited to include more updates over the coming fortnight. Update on Sunday the 23rd of March. Colin the wood pigeon is back hanging out in my trees. Blue's original pack also knew a wood pigeon who was also called Colin back in Cardiff, and they were friends with him. But this is a different pigeon in a different place, though. These hens do not like him. He startles them by flapping around up there. They can hear him, but not see him through the leaves. They keep thinking he's a cat bird of prey, which is not an unreasonable thought to have when a buzzard literally lives in a very nearby area of woodland and multiple times has flown over my garden, threatening to attack my hens, although she goes away when I come outside and threaten her and show her how she likes it. She comes every few weeks, mostly in the summer and in weather that is warmer and clearer with no strong winds. Anyway, one day this week, Colin landed on the garden path, I guess to forage for food. The hens jumped him and beat him up a bit before he flew off, seemingly unharmed. He has stayed in the trees, if not away, ever since. But the big news is that Wilma needed to go to the vet. She laid a soft-shelled egg. There have been eggs laid that I have attributed to authorised egg layers, Doris and Mabel, but have suspected might have been laid by Wilma because of how they looked. Every hen's eggs are unique, and Wilma's look like a cross between Doris and eggs. And Doris's eggs and Wilma's eggs. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Mabel egg. Very good. Anyway, at sunrise on Friday, I caught Wilma red-handed, or rather yellow-bummed, because the egg had burst and she was covered in yolk.
Oh no!
But she had soiled herself and her crop was full of sawdust she had eaten for having egg yolk on it. It took a while to clean her, and I couldn't get back to sleep after too much sunlight and anxiety. But I got her to the vet later that morning and got her implanted with the egg-stopping hormones again. Vet examined her, found no reason to suspect peritonitis or cancer. We had a chat about her trouble getting down the stairs and her slightly wide gait. He said the leg injury hypothesis is possible, or it could just be her getting old. He thinks the wide gait is probably her ovaries swelling with coming of spring. Apparently that's a thing. Wilma has indeed put on weight. The whole pack have. I weighed them this weekend, but Wilma the most so, though Betty is still heavier, the little chonker.
We love a chunk.
They were due for their weigh-ins anyway. Wilma felt unwell all day, but that's probably from eating sawdust. I told Betty to keep an eye on Wilma for me, and she did. Watched her all day. Next day, Wilma felt a lot better and laid another soft-shelled egg, but during the day, so wasn't forced to stay sat in it and breaking it. It was still whole when I found it. Good girls for not eating it. Hens with less training probably would have. I cooked it for the hens and fed it back to them, soft-boiled and cut open so it didn't resemble a newly laid egg. They're very capable of eating the eggs they lay, and if they get into the habit, it's very difficult to make them stop. They really enjoyed eating that. The other hens were worried about Wilma. Betty was very on edge, making distress calls when just sparrows were making noise, and the younger hens didn't lay eggs. Today they seem better. Wilma seems well, Betty is calm, Doris and Mabel both laid an egg. Doris's egg did have a slightly Wilma look about it, but the shell is far too good for Wilma to have made it, so it's Doris's. And that's the chicken update, much earlier than usual this time.
We love the chickens. I'm so happy to hear that Wilma's doing better and feeling better. I love I think it might be because I had a duck when I was a kid that I just love. I love chickens, ducks, swans. There's this huge, was it a heron?
Yeah.
That in spring and summer it comes by our city. There's a specific place where I used to work where it likes to come for like a couple weeks out of the year. So I just really love it. I like pigeons as well. So have we told them about my seagull thing?
Yeah, we mentioned it.
I don't hate them, but I just, like yesterday when we were out, there was like a pigeon that was like 6 feet away. Not a pigeon, there was a seagull like 6 feet away from me, and I did not feel stressed. I even took a picture, but I was like, I would rather you be a pigeon. And that's my thoughts on that. But I think that's one of the reasons I love your chicken so much.
Okay, next comment is Loa Lucas Jr., who says, hey, today it's totally Schway. We're going to get Laughing Mary here, so everything's going to be okay. Businessman with glowing cubes here to stay. We're here for Lex Luthor, the crazy balding man with the cold demeanour and kryptonite in hand. He wants your attention right down to the level, but we all know he's proof of a devil. Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm sad to say I may need to see a doctor soon about my vision, but I'm not going to give in to despair. To you all, thank you for the well wishes, and may you all have kryptonite handy against the country farm boys stealing your thunder. To begin, the thing I must give the DCAU credit for is for making the long-established characters more interesting and intriguing. Doesn't matter if they're well-known characters or a super obscure one, excuse me. They have a hand writing them in a way to make them interesting and hiring such an actor that makes them bloody memorable. Clancy Brown is such a man whose voice acting credits were already legendary, but makes it incredibly unforgettable. It's a testament to the amazing talent that carried this iteration into being legendary. Mark Hamill, Joker, legendary. I'd love to see a reel of him and Mark sharing some booth space with one another.
Me too.
What surprises me about Lex Luthor is how devious and petty he can be, from talking down to a golden Amazon after giving him a life-changing speech, to casually using poor Mercy to fight an enraged Harley. He's only humbled by Darkseid, but he has no qualms of using or abusing Sorceress Tala or outwitting Grodd. No wonder she misses the Flash's caring and enthusiastic embrace. He's the dastardly kind of villain you love to hate, minus the twirling moustache. My personal favourite moment from, and there's many, was when Lex and Brainiac merged into Brainy Lex. It was amazing and a great callback to the eagle-eyed viewers like myself. As always, you all, great episode of Totally Schway. Always a delight to hear you, and I wish you all the best. Time to get your battle suits and tie ready for the next episode.
We wish you the best as well, and I hope your vision gets better. Dealing with stuff with the eyes really sucks. I mean, dealing with any type of health ailment really sucks, but especially with the eyes, because we don't realize how, I'm so bad at thinking up words today, even like little lie, that's the word I'm looking for. We don't realize how much we rely on our vision for just the smallest little things, like, oh, my cat's doing something. I just glance over. Oh, no, he's not. It's the other cat that doesn't chew up cords. It's fine. Whereas I have, because I think I've mentioned my COVID thing, that I had a vision thing, and mine wasn't as near as bad as a lot of other people's vision problem. But when it was happening, I had to rely on a sense that I'm not normally very good at, and I'm still not very good at, and that's my hearing. And by golly, I'll tell you what, my hearing did not even improve in that. I just got annoyed with myself. So yeah, I really want your vision to get better, because, well, I just want to. You're my friend, and I don't like hearing that my friend needs help.
Next comment is from RJ Productions, who says, I used to crush so hard on this Lex Luthor. I don't know if it was his rich, deep voice or his beautiful dark skin tone matching his perfectly good-looking suit, but I simped hard for this character. I also just love that he's voiced by none other than Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob SquarePants. Yes, he was. Not really a SpongeBob household, but, to each their own.
I didn't get... I mean, I understood SpongeBob, but I didn't get... when it came out, I just didn't get it. Like, why people liked it so much. But having someone explain to me, someone I'm related to, explain to me why they liked it, I understand. Mm-hmm. It's just not, it's not a Mary thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I can now see, why.
So the next comment is from Big Mikey P. Michael Andre Parlon, who says, Lex Luthor again, rightio. Is the nail polish transparent and not colour, by the way? Mary, was your nail polish transparent? I don't think it was.
Was it the bright pink one or the purple one?
I think it was the pink one.
I'm going through, I have these phases of, I mean, I always collect nail polish, but I've been following this Vintage Dusties on TikTok and YouTube, and I didn't know that you could just collect them forever rather than just getting rid of them after their expiry date. So I've been going through a lot of nail polishes, seeing if I could ever revive them. And I've also been buying a lot of nail polishes, so I can't actually remember what color it was.
but it wasn't clear.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so to continue the latest essay, there's the fact that Clancy is another one of those notable voice actors with notable live-action roles. Fans of Highlander, Starship Troopers, and The Shawshank Redemption, me included, can attest. Honestly, animation needs more due attention than the likes of live-action Emmys and Oscars, if not way more. Would even risk bankrupting and banning live action for fueling such an agenda, really. Stanley's just making himself more of a pariah due to outdated preferences here. Same old story with George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry. Orion has a cool ride. There, you heard it here first, Mary. Orion has a cool ride. But I'm more biased on tanks, planes, and spacecraft.
It's really great that we can all have different opinions and that we stick to those. I said that to you about something the other day. Well, it was yesterday.
Not even brooms and dragons are as appealing. 3 words, Lex Luthor. Magical girl army. Oh, here we go. Robots and kryptonites get too old and easily bested, all while women fight better and, well, magic is hard to immunize against. Plus, it'll be nice to see Soups get clobbered by enchanted guns, runic naginatas, mana archery, magic staff beam attacks, and so on. Don't understand Luke's cinematic appeal on hard light holograms. They're better for military purposes, better than Halo Reach's decoy holograms and equal to Red vs. Blue's Agent Connecticut's holograms. Honestly, movies and shows are better off staying 2D screens and near 2D. Well, I was more thinking of you don't need set builders, you don't need costume designers, you wouldn't need to do special effects designers if they're all hard light holograms. Think of all the money they would save in producing movies. You could also have interactive shows where you go and actually live through it. That's what I was thinking of. A bit like the what's it called, the holodeck in Star Trek. But as you say, yes, there are also military applications for it. If only more cartoons did more crossover, sequel retcons akin to Ghost in the Machine and Divided We Fall. Might be nice to see, say, Disney TV animation's Gravity Falls, Robbie Valentino's mind control music ideas being the reason Star versus the Forces of Evil's Moon Butterfly went rogue. The resulting questions being who done it, how and why. 18 minutes and 45 seconds. Outdated opinion from Bruce Timm not being a fan of continuity nuttery. Feels like a chore at first, but I assure that it'll feel good in the end. Ask a Star Wars prequel fan who read Darth Plagueis and the Revenge of the Sith novelizations. Played Republic Commando and Battlefront 1 2004 and 2 2005. Watched Clone Wars 2003 and perused the Republic and Clone Wars Adventures comics. Pass on Dexter. Heard it's better off finished at season 4 or 5. The rest be ignored.
What do I say? I always say that I wish Dexter would have ended with the Trinity Killer, which is like into season 4, I think. But I think it should have been a different show. Same characters, obviously. It should have been a Dexter show, but I think it should have been Darker Dexter. Or Dexter the Dark Passenger after that. Because it does feel like 2 separate TV series. Obviously the same people, but would have been awesome.
For anything Highlander, the first movie, its novelization, and the search for vengeance are worth it. A favourite animated Luthor moment of mine would be the interruption during Superman vs. Lobo and the Main Man Part 1. As for tie-in comics, there's that Superman Adventures flashback where he, a young boy with red hair and a miniature of the city of Metropolis, boasts to his good-for-nothing dad that the city will be his, only for the scene moving to the present day where Superman flies triumphant. Apologies if I remembered the scene, let alone not remembering the issue number. Not sure if the Barbie movie's a masterpiece, though. It may have its moments, but will
I'm going to stop you there. You can rewatch it until you love it. I love that movie.
But will it age well alongside surprise hits Kingsman, The Secret Service, Jumanji 2, and Girls und Panzer der Film?
Of course it will.
Wonder if the Marvel method also brought ruin to the Marvel Animation Studios. The Oscars dishonoured by not having the late great Tony Todd in the Memoriam. Still, congrats to Flo winning Best Animated Picture. 47-17. 05, actually. 49-16 now at Lorna Doone. 51-09. I'm a guy who doesn't understand the hype for Invincible Demon Slayer and Inside Out 2 yet, if not ever. My grasp of contemporary headlines is weird, especially with that ear grater with the ugly hair, disgusting tariffs and anti-Ukrainian LGBTQ plus immigrant views around. I would like a daughter, and she could feel more special if she's queer too. I just hope she doesn't become short-haired and sometimes muscular butch, though. Sorry, TOH series finale, time skip lols and Amity. But in case a sequel series happens, they better be more feminine and motherly in adulthood. Being a long-haired, multi-talented girly girl with a tomboy streak ain't wrong, and stuff like Girls and Panzer embraces this. See Rabbit Team, a bunch of first-year high school girls being big fans of war movies like Kelly's Heroes. I can partially sympathise with Ian Levine, though. Beat Star Wars legends Troy Denning and Karen Travis. DCAU's The Flash X Giganta does get undone in the Justice League Unlimited Adventures tie-in comics, though. 1 hour 17 and 47 seconds. Good, the extra pain makes the follow-up hate punch stronger. I'll admit that school shooting victims can make for good recruits for crusades against evil. Think of it as karma and irony, and if it were possible, the former schoolgirls would make better soldiers than the boring boys with or without magical super soldier enhancements. Babylon 5 speeches are great, but I prefer how things visually end via the deconstruction of falling stars. Yes, entropy almost always wins, and the good guys' efforts of one era will fade away from memory and worth in future eras, but hope prevails and life goes on. Also, the canticle of Lebowitz nods from it are very much appreciated. Meantime, I wonder if Watchman's Ozymandias has a very inspiring speech somewhere. He's an idol of mine, after all, no matter what. If only Wolfenstein the Old Blood was also in the speech list near the vid's end. Too much Doctor Who, which is a personal complaint. And too much Andor. Where's the Legends continuity, love? Will await miracles on Screen's Chickens. I don't think Orion has much to talk about, in the DCAU at least. Still, we'll await. Well, hopefully, Big Mikey P, you feel satisfied with what we said about Orion, because we did talk about him quite a bit.
Yeah, but I could see his point, because we did talk a lot about the comics.
Yeah, we talked about what they didn't include and
Yeah.
potentially why they didn't include it.
So yeah, I kind of agree, but also disagree at the same time, because I just want to. I'm joking. I agree with you, Big Mikey P.
Okay, so next comment is from Ryan Jones, who says everyone's favourite ultra-capitalist Lex Luthor is here.
I thought they were going to talk about Luke. Because a lot of capitalists like spending money, don't they?
No, that's the thing. They like making money, but they don't spend it.
Oh.
If you spend it, you keep the economy going. If you hoard it, then...
Yeah, I get that. There's just this TikTok saying, capitalism really popped off here. Then they show, loads of stuff that they bought.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Makes me think of you every time.
In theory, yeah, you're supposed to spend the money you earn, but most of them don't. They hoard it. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, true.
And hide it so they don't have to pay any taxes.
Weird.
Anyway. My favourite episode that has him in it is The Way of All Flesh, because it's a good example that you shouldn't make a deal with Lex because there's always a catch.
Mm-hmm.
I might be missing something, but I don't understand why the main DCAU Lex thought that he would have to give up power to become president. Well, it's because presidents are bound by rules and regulations, or they're supposed to be. Subtle political commentary there. He indicates that Lex Luthor has a lot more power than a president does. So he would view it as being a downgrade.
Yeah.
The Justice Lord's Lex became president, and become president would give you so much power you could commit crimes publicly and get away with it, and start World War III, which is something he couldn't do. I know technically capitalists get away with the crimes, but only if they've got enough money. Also, a real-life billionaire villain that is smarter than him became president. Really? A real-life billionaire villain is smarter than Lex Luthor became president? In what timeline?
Something he said.
Yeah, speaking of villains, there's a documentary that exposes Jeremy Kyle and his show that was cancelled because a guest named Steve died after being on the show. And for people that didn't know, Jeremy Kyle is a mix between Lockup and Roland Daggett.
I mean, kind of.
A little bit, yeah. And his show is like the Jerry Springer show, but it pretends to care about people.
Yeah.
I recently found the 2-part documentary on Channel 4's YouTube channel, and I was going to send you a link to it for you, Luke and Mary, to watch. But unfortunately, it's been taken down. I don't know if it was ITV that had taken it down for wanting people to forget about the Jeremy Kyle controversy or what. But the reason I'm talking about it is because people need to remember it, and I thought this was a good way of spreading awareness of the controversy. Jeremy Kyle is a scumbag, a classist arsehole, and a hypocrite.
Yes. That's the thing, with these TV shows, especially if you're an early millennial, and maybe elder millennial, you know that loads of these TV shows, especially in the United States, were going on, and they're terrible.
Well, it's just exploiting weak people.
Yeah, exploitation. And I mean, I was a fan of Oprah. I'm just gonna be honest with y'all. I love Oprah. Oprah is queen, and I loved her show, but there was still a little bit of exploitation there as well, in the earlier episodes. But those things, I hope they never exist. But then we're also seeing stuff on reality TV that's kind of doing the same thing, but with a different how am I gonna say this? A different, they're still exploiting them in the same way, but the guise of it is that it's a reality TV program that you're enjoying and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just continuing Ryan's comment, he says the sad thing is that Steve doesn't have a proper head grave at the cemetery, and if Jeremy really cared about Steve, he would pay for his tombstone.
Yeah.
But during the controversy, he made it all about himself.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to say this in the last episode, but Mary, can you explain why you don't like Clarion the Witch Boy? Is it because he's a brat?
Yes.
Explained.
But here's the thing, he reminds me of somebody, not his whole like demeanor, but some of his demeanor reminds me of somebody in particular, and it doesn't sit right with me because I see that person in my head every time I see them as well. Well, not every time, but most of the time. But that's why. Brat.
So Ryan also says, I don't like horror movies. They terrify me to death. And a Winnie the Pooh horror movie is a stupid idea. Like, seriously, who thought when they were watching Winnie the Pooh and say to themselves, I like to turn it into a horror movie? It's given the F the old Winnie the Pooh. This is hardcore, bright colours and wholesomeness are for P words. This is a man's movie vibes. Mary, why would I think you are weird for liking Barbie? I would never think that.
Thank you. I'm sure there's something I can find about myself that you would think was weird, though. Like maybe some of the things that I eat. Because I'm a very picky eater. Or, no, probably maybe the fact that I know the Backstreet Boy dance from like an old VHS from when like everybody first came out. I do know it. Can I still do it? Probably, but I would never do it in front of my husband.
Mm-hmm. Next comment then is from SR Striker, who says, well, at first this Lex at the start seemed more like a nuisance than a threat until the Cadmus arc that he'd gone to. They could have a Who Shot JR from Dallas and Who Shot Mr. Burns in The Simpsons moment called Who Shot Lex Luthor. But after Cadmus, that is kind of overstayed after everything that he's done was unforgiving. I guess you have seen the video on why My Adventures with Superman Lex, while DCEU Lex doesn't, as saying the reason why he hated Superman is about his dad, which we didn't get a flashback on that, and the same for Zemo in Captain America Civil War. No, I haven't seen any videos about My Adventures with Superman. As he was much better handled on why he hated the hero, and I think that Billy Zane should have been the DCEU Lex instead of Jesse Eisenberg. Yeah, I mean, he might be a little bit old now, but who knows?
You watch your tongue when you talk about him.
Well, I couldn't see Billy Zane as like a Mark Zuckerberg style executive.
Am I being wrong in thinking that he was in a TV show about a school? Was it like Boston Public or something?
Billy Zane?
Yeah.
I think he might have been, yeah.
With Jerry Ryan.
I thought it was one of those law shows, but I could be mixing up.
But I thought it was about a TV show. I'm just going to check this now.
Okay, well, while Mary does that, I'll continue with the comment. I remember the episode with the dinosaur robot and Metallo creation and the Amazo episode. I wish they could have kept Professor Ivor alive, as he has the reptilian look. About the Xander video, remember I said about that doesn't Harry Osborn and Eddie Brock in Spectacular Spider-Man 3 as entitled? You said they're arrogant, but the 90s Spider-Man wedding episode does not count as entitled because he's not marrying MJ as like the end of the world. That I was confused on the Spectacular Spider-Man, Eddie Brock on hating Spider-Man. Was it about the lack of honesty or about the parents, or was it a weird sense of entitlement because in the comics it was a miscalculation on the Sin Eater's case? But what do you think about the original concept of Eddie Brock being a woman, and that the reason for hating Spider-Man is like that movie, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, if you've seen that movie, and the canon that Miguel talked about in Across the Spider-Verse, that does that include the friend of Spider-Man, is that they secretly hate his guts. I don't really have very strong opinions on most Spider-Man properties, to be honest. I watch a lot of them. I've been watching Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. In fact, I did finish watching that. Thought that was decent enough. But yeah, Mary, you have an answer on Boston Public.
Yes, he was in 4 episodes of the Boston Public, and it was about a school.
It's not the show that I was thinking of.
And it does have Jerry Ryan in it.
And it does have Jerry. Okay.
Yes, it does.
Good.
I believe
Excellent.
it's Jerry Ryan. Duh, Mary.
She's just checking the cast. Yes, there's Jerry Ryan as Ronnie Cook. There we go. All right, let's move on to the next comment, which is from A1ML33Y. That's Julia Rowell, who says, "Hello, true believers," on my Stanley voice, Mary Marvel, and Luke Wilson from Stargirl. Ouch! Ouch! It's Mr. Julia, and let me tell you all about why I like Clancy Brown Lex Luthor. First of all, I like the fact that Clancy Lex just reminds me of the post-crisis John Byrne Lex Luthor. But the only missing thing from the DCAU Lex is that he didn't have the period of his life where he faked his death because of kryptonite cancer. Cloned a new fit body and long hair and a sexy Australian accent. Lex having a wife named the Countessa. I feel like the only one who likes and remembers this about 90s Luthor, and his daughter Lena, his sister Lena, his dad Lionel, and Mama Luthor. I wish are all in the DCAU, including Otis and Tessmacher. I remember that stuff too. I make reference to it sometimes in my videos when it's appropriate. But I wish this Lex had all of this in the show, including Justice League Unlimited. I find it funny he played Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob. He loves me money. I like Clancy in Highlander, best character in the movie. It's better to burn out than to fade away. I loved him in Venture Brothers as Red Death. Was funny as hell. He's a scary supervillain and a wholesome family man. He plays it so well. Comedy and villainy, I really like his range. So, I have a question, Luke. Have you heard about the seriously dire state Warner Brothers is in with the Superman movie having so much riding on it that if it doesn't succeed, then Warner Brothers could end up like the former 20th Century Fox Studios? So what are your thoughts? Do you think Warner Brothers will go out of business? I think it's not so much that they would go out of business, it's more that they might just decide to sell it off to probably Disney.
I have thoughts.
Go on.
As I open up my Diet Coke in a dramatic fashion. It wasn't as satisfying as I thought. Superman is going to be great. We're going to have a crypto plushie, and Warner Brothers is going to come out of financial ruin. Those are my thoughts.
Well, what they really should be doing is they should be trying to make more movies like the original Joker that was low budget but made a huge profit. If you end up making a movie that costs, $250 million, let's say,
mm-hmm.
and then you have to pay $200 million in marketing as well.
Yeah.
Let's just round it up and call it $500 million. If you make, I don't know, what was it? Let's say you break the $1 billion mark on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've got $500 million profit. That's great. But if you'd make a movie like Joker, which had, I believe it was an $80 million budget, I could be mistaken, but it was comparatively low, and it massively surpassed $1 billion, you're suddenly making twice the profit.
And maybe not do a sequel all of the time.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. But I think they're kind of going down that route with the Sergeant Rock movie and the Clayface movie. Apparently, they're relatively low budget movies. And even then, if they only make, if you spend, let's say you spend $50 million on one of these movies and it only makes, I say only, but $250 million, you still made a big profit. You've quintupled your money.
And also hire some people from maybe a podcast. I say people, me, to do some voice work. I am cheap. I'm cheap. If you give me the promise that you will make the Lois Lane bed and a Lois Lane Barbie doll, I'm in. Have me for as long as you want. That would be my pay. Warner Brothers. Can't say that it's going to be great. mediocre maybe, but yeah, I'll help you out of your financial ruin.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking to myself then, actually, maybe I shouldn't be giving financial advice considering I've got like no money, but I've got lots of assets. Let's put it that way. I describe myself as cash poor, asset wealthy.
Yeah.
Anyway, continuing the comment is what's going to happen to the comics like Absolute Universe and everything else? What's going to happen to the animation studio if Warner Brothers goes under, or seems like the Fire Festival Joker 2 hurt Warner Brothers? Do you think James Gunn can save Warner Brothers, or will the Fantastic Four, Smurfs, and that Dinosaur Savage Land movie outsell this summer?
You know what? I have hope and I have faith in James Gunn. After seeing Creature Commandos, and I've had a taste. I have faith, and I think just seeing the trailer, it's I'm gonna go see it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go see Fantastic Four as well. I to be honest, out of all of those movies, I think the ones that are not going to do as well, I don't think the Smurfs has got a chance against those three, frankly.
I don't care for the Smurfs, but you don't realize how there's a lot of people in this world that love the Smurfs.
I know there are, and it tailors to a much younger audience as well. So you might have parents taking their 5 and 6-year-olds to go and see it. But I don't think it really stands much of a chance against Fantastic Four and Superman. I don't think the Jurassic Park film will do as well either, because I know the last two, they were successful, but they didn't get like the best reviews. Maybe it was even the last three. I
don't know how many there are now.
Yeah, I think this is like the fourth one of like the new Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah, we haven't seen the. No, we haven't seen the third or fourth one. We saw the second one, but yeah.
That's enough.
I am really. There's nothing against South Park. Not South Park. South Park, Jurassic Park. I was thinking parks. But I just am. I am. If it's not animated, I'm kind of over the sequels. I don't mind like the tie-ins, but what I'm saying is like Superman and stuff like that. Yeah, those are things that I definitely think need sequels. But something like Jurassic Park, I mean, like, guys, there are so many other things that they could do.
Yeah, and plus, if Barbenheimer showed us anything, there's space for multiple movies to be out at the same time. People can go and see it if they want to go and see it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying I don't want these things to. I just really would like to see some standalone movies, like Barbie.
But if I had to pick one that I think will underperform compared to the others, I'd pick Jurassic Park any day of the week. But we'll see, won't we? And not that it ultimately matters all that much, really. But on a positive note, this is continuing Julia's comment. On a positive note, I've been playing the Guardians of the Galaxy video game to cheer myself up during this stressful time. Been reading some of the comics too because I love the movies. Why can't Warner Brothers and DC make something as fun as Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel vs. Capcom 2? Anyway, until next time, Mary Marvel and that guy Luke Wilson from Stalker.
Oh, we love you guys.
Okay, next comment is Mandalorian Hunter, who says, can't wait for your dedicated Lex Luthor video. I always thought Lex was black in the DCAU because of his tan skin. I think he's ethnically ambiguous. He was inspired by Terry Savalas, who is obviously Greek. And yeah, it was very intentional.
I said that quite a while ago, didn't I?
Yeah.
Like when I first started watching Justice League again. Or not again, but I first started watching Justice League. Over here rather than over there.
Honestly, I didn't know how much I grew up with Clancy Brown, from him as Neo Cortex and Uka Uka from Crash Bandicoot to Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob. He really knocked it out of the ballpark with Lex Luthor. He really is amazing. Agreed.
I'm going to say it here, and I'm just going to... Our Lord and Savior, Clancy Brown.
Next comment is from Alexandra Fawkes. I hope I've said your name correctly, and I apologise if I haven't. As much as I love DCAU Luthor and his development through STS and JLU, I just have one small nitpick. The fact that he wasn't born in Smallville and wasn't Clark's friend when they were younger. I think this aspect not only creates a nice contrast between Superman and Luthor, both came from the same place, except Clark was raised by loving parents while Lex had an abusive father, but also gives their rivalry a tragic aspect, with Lex not only represent to Superman a great enemy, but also a personal loss. Like some stories like Birthright even reveal that Clark blames himself for Lex's actions. It's weird that DCAU Luthor, that took inspiration from so many versions of the character, chose to exclude this interesting detail of his backstory. Yeah, I think I think that they may have viewed it as being a slightly contrived part of the story, but I completely take your point. I think it was all part of their streamlining of everything. But anyway, next comment is from Play Content, who says, let's talk about Lex, baby. Lex and the City, the joy of Lex. I think for now, that's all I've got. Hearing the EastEnders references made me want Ross Kemp to play Lex Luthor.
Oh my gosh.
If that happened, I'd probably realise I'd never really wanted it. Him being Scrooge in the modernised ITV Christmas Carol works surprisingly well. But while the outlandish casting should end while it's still functional, I really wanted this comment to be more relevant. I'm so sorry it ended this way. P.S. I remember being super young and saying to my mother, whose name is Mary, actually, Mercy, bring me my sweet corn, or something, because I was pretending to be DCAU Lex. She can't remember. Probably a good thing.
Oh, if I would have said that to my grandma or my grandpa or my mama, oh Lord, I wouldn't have had that sweet corn. She would have been like, excuse me?
Next, we have David Carney, who says, hi, Luke and Mary. Hope you both had a good week. The gaming group is in a good place. I've been in charge since the start of the year. Clancy Brown is one of my favourite actors. Really enjoyed him in Sleepy Hollow, The Goldbergs, and Highlander. The definitive voice of Lex Luthor for me. And me too. Have a good week, both.
You too. We did have
Yeah, it's been okay.
It's been better than previous weeks.
Yep.
Which is awesome.
Next, you have Teo Jones, who says Clancy Brown was an excellent choice to play Lex Luthor. The way his voice goes from calm and collected to vindictive and rage-fueled is truly astonishing. I've always been cautious about his role in the first part of Hereafter. He actually seemed genuinely remorseful. He even said he was going to miss Superman. Considering his actions in JLU, I strongly believe Lex was lying through his perfectly white teeth, but knew Lois was too grief-stricken to actually suspect. What do you think? Was Lex sincere, or was he just a good actor? I think he was sincere. I think the arrival of Superman was the most exciting challenge he had faced in a long time, and he relished being able to prove that he was better than Superman. Though I suppose in this case, the only way that he would have succeeded there is because he outlived him. At least that's what they thought at the time. Next comment is from Jasper the Game Master, excuse me. First time commenter, I believe, Jasper. Apologies if you've done it before, but let's get to your comment, who says the battlesuit destruction is his equivalent to the weapons cache heist in Janperson, the thing that caused a businessman to be so focused on destroying one guy. You could see him and Billy Goldie being friends. Any thoughts to add there, Mary?
No.
Okay. Next, we have another new commenter, I think. Apologies if I'm mistaken, but it's Silverstring's Musings, who says, my personal interpretation of his actions in the last episode of JLU was that it was his way of getting revenge on Darkseid for taking any chance of reviving Brainiac away from him. Well, yes, yeah, and Darkseid had done what he had wanted, which was merged with Brainiac. But yes, absolutely. It's his way of proving his superiority, wasn't it? Next, we have Jose Morales, who says, always appreciated the fact that Telly Savalas was the original model for this particular Lex Luthor. I always wanted a scene of him asking Mercy, who loves you, baby? Yeah, that would have been cool. Oh, there was another comment from Screenwiper that I missed, who says, remember next week to talk about Darkseid's Irish son, Orion. Yeah, well, we touched on that. That was Orion's civilian identity, very briefly.
We love Irish people.
Yeah, anything to add on that? No.
I also love British people.
You do not.
Yes, I do. I love Egyptians. Speaking of, can we briefly talk about something?
Yeah, sure.
I went antiquing. I guess that's what I literally went through a secondhand furniture shop yesterday, and Luke was like, he told his mom and everything, like, Mary made me go antiquing.
That is what it is. You go through this is like furniture that's like 100 years old.
Yeah, we found this. It's like a miniature Egyptian tomb. a sarcophagus.
Yeah.
And if you could put things inside of it. So
Yeah. It was quite tacky, but I took a picture of it because it made me
yeah,
laugh. But it was about what 4 or 5 feet tall, maybe 4 feet.
yeah,
And it looks like a Tutankhamun sarcophagus, but you can, when you open it up, it's got shelves inside of it.
yeah.
It's like, this is where I keep my insert something funny.
It's not my style, but I thought it was really funny, and that's why I brought it up.
Hmm.
And the fact that you said we're going antiquing,
I said we had been.
and we had been antiquing. I'm like, okay,
It's true, we had.
it sounds classier.
It does, and the thing is, we're in this like little seaside town, and it was absolutely full of out-of-towners, people like us, I suppose. Although I am from the area.
I did complain a lot.
Yeah, you did. You're like, I didn't expect there to be so many people here.
Yeah, I am not the biggest after COVID lockdown. I am not. I mean, before as well, but it's gotten worse. I am not good around a huge group of people.
Mm-hmm. All right, so next comment is from Michael Dolan, who says, "Ahoy, Luke and Mary." Sorry, my voice is just starting to go now. I second your praise of distinctive voices, especially in animation. In my youth, I always noticed when the same voices popped up in cartoons and eventually learned to put names to them long before the internet, let alone the Internet Movie Database cast lists existed. I even wanted to become a voice actor, as people have told me for my entire life that I have the voices for it, but I was never really in a position to pursue it. I met the late Tom Kane, the voice of Yoda, Count Dooku, and the narrator in Star Wars, Clone Wars, Magneto and Wolverine and the X-Men, etc., at a convention in Philadelphia over a decade ago. And he sadly advised me that if I wasn't located in New York or Los Angeles, it would be exponentially harder to break into the business. I also realised a while ago that if voiceover legends like Peter Optimus Prime Cullen and Frank Freddy from Scooby-Doo Welker are still working regularly today, there probably isn't much call for newbies to take their place. But of those voiceover legends, I also second your praise of Clancy Brown. Like almost every other character in the DCAU, when I'm reading the comics and Lex shows up, it's Fancy Clancy. I have to say it that way. Can you say Flancy? No, Fancy Clancy? I don't know. That I hear in my head. You'll probably get to it in one of your The Batman villain videos down the line, but he does a very good Mr. Freeze in that series. It's an interesting take, as the production team sought to avoid the tragic sympathetic treatment that BTAS gave Victor Freeze. Brown's Freeze is literally cold-hearted criminal who does awful, terrible things, and yet he simply doesn't care. And I could be wrong, but doesn't he also do the voice of Black Manta in Batman the Brave and the Bold? Do you know what? He might do. I'm going to have to double-check that. And after voicing all of those iconic villains throughout his career, it still does my head in that he's Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob SquarePants. I remember him saying that he wanted to do a recurring role that his children could enjoy. What, they can't enjoy Superman? Come on. But it still floored me that the same voice that said, "Squidward, me lad," comes out of the same mouth that said, "I took his head and had his woman before his blood was even cold," as the Kurgan, yes. You do realise that now I'll never stop thinking of Orion's cosmic Zimmer frame. Sorry. It's another example of Kirby's almost abstract depiction of super science. In principle, I get that it's meant to be a kind of minimalist spaceship with a warp core strapped to his chest, and the control joysticks and foot pedals floating at the end of connective cables. And I guess Kirby was determined to avoid having Orion fly around on an ordinary jet or rocket pack on his back, but in practice, well, let's just say I wouldn't have drawn it quite that way. It makes him look like he's water skiing without a boat to tow him. Or are the pedals meant to be some sort of cosmic skates? Given that Kirby has already created the Silver Surfer and the New Gods also included the Black Racer, who slaloms around the universe on a pair of celestial skis, I wouldn't rule it out. Lex Luthor's pettiness in using his innovations only for trying to beat Superman is an example of something that so inextricably ties the superhero comic stories with the tropes of his name. Bank robbers with freeze rays. A staggering number of comic book villains seem to have invented revolutionary, even reality-defying technological developments, and can't think of anything better to do with them than commit robberies that net them far, far less than if they had just sold the technology in the first place. Granted, Lex was doing that for the most part, as the US military is the biggest investor in mad science around. For decades, the Department of Defense shoveled uncounted taxpayer dollars in the most insane projects if they were told it would result in a huge pile of dead communists at the end. But it's not just him and guys like 1960s vintage Mr. Freeze and the Vulture over at Marvel. It seems that super genius heroes like Reed Richards and Tony Stark are surprisingly reluctant to share their world-changing innovations with anyone who doesn't wear a mask and tights. I mean, if Bruce Wayne and Barbara Gordon can suffer spine damage in Nightfall and the Killing Joke that renders them paraplegic, but then get miraculous chips implanted in them to go right back to being peak-level ninjas, why are there any wheelchairs left in the DC universe? Yeah, it's a fair point.
I'm just sitting over here listening, drinking my Diet Coke with my throat making weird noises. So I am not a mad scientist, but I agree.
Continuing the comment, he says, Highlander. There should have been only one. Yes, I agree. The later movies were a bit not good. The scene where a famished Luther greedily wolfs down the contents of the vending machine before seeing his reflection in the glass will never be the same to me again without thinking, have a Snickers, Lex. You're not yourself when you're hungry. No man should have that much power, Luther says, but he means no man except me should have that much power. And that gets to something about Luther that makes him such a great villain. When you suggest that Lex could have been better than Superman, trying to compete with him in seeing who could do more to help the citizens of Metropolis, no, he really couldn't. It's been said that the core fantasy of Superman is not what if someone had that kind of power, it's what if someone had that kind of power and used it to help people unselfishly. Luther simply cannot wrap his head around the idea. Like too many, if not all billionaires, Lex thinks he's a next-level genius for figuring out some 13-dimensional chess move granting him wealth and power that we common proles could never be smart enough to understand. But we do understand it perfectly well. We just don't want to do it if it requires us to hurt that many people to achieve it. He's just wired differently. And so Lex simply doesn't trust Superman. To Lex, nobody could be that selfless and altruistic. It simply has to be a con or a scam. Because Lex couldn't be that selfless without it being a trick to serve some selfish ulterior motive. So he simply cannot believe that anyone could, especially not someone with the kind of power Superman has. And so it isn't just a moral greed that drives him, and more than pettiness towards Superman, he fears that Superman will inevitably treat him the way Lex treats everyone else below him. Like so many weak men, he fears whatever he can't control.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think that deep down inside, in part of his soul, that he's spent so long trying to ignore, he knows that Superman really is just that kind, and he also knows that he's incapable of that sort of kindness himself. And that knowledge shames him in a way he can never admit, not even to himself. So a great deal of Lex Luthor's hatred of Superman is fueled by envy and resentment that Supes is the better person Lex knows he never can be. Jack Kirby is emblematic of too many comic creators in their final years. It's only a recent development that they get credit, let alone financial compensation, from creating the most popular characters in the world. Just ask Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster or Bill Finger. Even now, Peter David has a 50-50 chance of dying penniless in a hospital bed as his health continues to decline. You're onto something about the odd poetry of Kirby's dialogue. It isn't quite Shakespeare or King James Bible, but it does feel like it demands the same level of gravitas. I've often wondered if Superman 3 would be held in higher esteem if Gene Hackman had returned to play the actual Lex Luthor instead of Robert Vaughn's diet soda brand version, and his massive supercomputer, and if the massive supercomputer was named Brainiac. It might also have been nice if someone like Jimmy Olsen had described Superman's evil behaviour as acting all bizarro. Big Mikey P say The Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie. To quote Sam Wilson talking about Baron Zemo in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he's out of line, but he's right. I've heard them called pancakes, flapjacks, and hotcakes at various times. I suspect it's a regional thing as to what they're called around the country, and that flapjack and hotcakes has wider popularity as a name in the earlier part of the 20th century, as I hear them more often in older media. I've always been more of a waffle man anyway.
Am I the only person that thinks of, like, you know, the card, the Jack card, the playing card? Am I the only one that thinks of that when I think of pancakes?
I don't think of it that way, but maybe other people do. Right, Peter Pan as a horror film isn't really a new idea. There's a reason the famous vampire film is called The Lost Boys. Yes, absolutely. Stanley might have done some clobbering in his youth, but I suspect he didn't fight fair. He seems like the type to have a gym sock full of quarters hidden in his coat pocket. Oh, maybe. And that is the end of this comment, and I think that's all of them. I didn't see one from Doc. Let me just double check that there were none that were hidden somehow. Let me just look. Held. Nope, no held comments. So if you left a comment and we didn't get to read it out, it's not that I skipped over it, it's just that it's not here. YouTube has this weird thing where longer comments tend to disappear. But hey, I'm kind of getting a bit doolally now because I've been talking for so long. My throat is very, very dry. So Mary, hand over to you.
You are going to love the next episode of Totally Schway because it is all about Mr. Freeze.
Oh, is it?
Okay. Yes. Luke and I have been working on something, and it's really cool because I get to read a lot of stuff that he's written, and I have been reading a lot about Nor Freeze and Mr. Freeze. So I thought, and I'm also looking at the Heart of Ice print. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put those two thoughts together and we're going to talk about it. Because Luke and I, after we finish watching JLU, we are going to start watching BTAS again. So I thought it would be really nice to talk about it. Because I haven't really talked about Mr. Freeze very much, have I?
No.
But I think it's important to talk about him and Nora, because Nora is a very important character, not only in the animation scene, but also in a lot of other things, and sometimes without people even knowing what they're doing with a character like Nora. So yeah, I want to remind everybody to drink some water, or Diet Coke if you want, or Diet Pepsi, even though I'm not a Pepsi person. And take your medication. And if you're going to go out in the sun, wear some sunscreen. Sun protection is a very, very, very important thing. And also to be kind to yourself, because a lot of times we forget while we're being kind to so many people in this world that sometimes don't deserve it. We often forget to be kind to ourselves and take care of ourselves. And I'm not just talking about, brushing your teeth or making sure you've got, good, personal hygiene and stuff like that. Please have those things. But also just give yourself some time and give yourself some leniency on certain things, because we're not perfect. And we need to also make sure we're taking care of our inner child. So just remember to be kind to yourself, and not just today, but every day. And make sure you're doing something that you enjoy. Even if you're really busy, even if it's just for half a minute, try to do something that, or make plans to do something joyful, because I often forget that, and I have a lot of time on my hands. So, yeah, I love you guys, and I really, 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 really want you guys to have a great day, a great week, a great month, a great year. And because I love y'all, and you're my friends, and you deserve all of the great things. Have a great, great time. Love you, bye!